Hey Brainiacs, how you guys doing today? I am CamsBrain, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to another episode of My Humble Opinion. If you guys are new here, we've been talking about a book called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And what we do, we take a law of power each week at Sunday at 8 p.m. and we break it down and see how it can relate to us spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, in some ways as well. Today is no exception. We'll be talking about the 18th law of power, which is do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Now, I usually always start off by saying the 48 laws of power is a book of manipulation. And this particular law of power, I don't think so. I think this is a very blatant and direct statement. Sometimes you have to understand that you're going to need other people in order to succeed in life, in order to just get through life. I usually always break things down, like I said, in a spiritual sense, in a financial sense, and then in a relationship type situation. So as it comes to like a relationship situation, I think this is basically saying that you have to be able to be open in your relationship with whoever you're with in order to grow. So in a relationship, it's a situation where it's like you can't find yourself in a position where you're dating somebody and you're not being open in order to grow. You're gonna always have a recurring situation in any relationship where you're going to continuously have to give into it in order to get a better outcome. So the more and more you're able to be open with your spouse, your significant other, let them know what you like and what you don't like, it offers for a better relationship between the two of you so that you guys can grow collectively. It's a very important thing as it relates to a relationship, just because you're gonna continue to get to know one another. You're gonna always evolve as an individual. And the more and more you can share your experiences, share how you feel, the better and better things will get as it relates to being able to have a healthy situation with your spouse. Now in business, I think it's a twofold type situation. Being an island sometimes can be good if you're setting yourself apart from other companies with whatever it is that you are selling to the public. And then sometimes you have to also be open to getting help from other companies to help your business grow. Even like with what I'm doing right now with social media. You know, sometimes I get a little bit of views, sometimes I get a lot of views, and I try to do a lot myself. But if I put myself in a position where I'm not on the island, I'm not trying to do everything myself, and I end up wanting to collab with somebody else, then it makes it where my job's a little bit easier because I have a little bit of help. Instead of being on the island and saying, hey, I'm gonna do everything myself, it's easier to get that support and have that situation where you have help should you need it. I think there is a time where you need to be an island when you're trying to develop what you're trying to do in a business or as an individual. I think there's time to, date yourself. There's time to figure out how you want to structure your business. That way, when you get the help, you can be very, very, as a matter of a fact of what you need help with, or even what you want in a relationship. I think the bigger picture with anything, how I always say is you want to make sure that you know what you want out of life. You want to make sure you know what you want out of your business. And then once you have those guidelines down, once you have those stipulations down and those boundaries, then you're able to either in business demand what you want, in a relationship request what you want, or even in a spiritual sense, ask God or whatever higher power you believe in for what you feel like you may need. Spiritually, I think it ties into the concept of understanding that you can't, do everything on your own. Some people don't believe in a higher power, and some people live very well thinking that way. But you have a large group of people who need to have a spiritual connection in order to feel complete or whole in their lives. And I think that speaks directly to the concept of making sure that you're not an island, making sure that you're not thinking that you can do everything on your own. Listen, I've had experiences where I know people who don't believe in God. I know people who feel like they can do things on their own, but certain situations where somebody ends up getting unalived or somebody ends up getting That person who doesn't believe in a higher power, the first thing they'll possibly always do is call for God or call for whatever higher power they've heard of. That speaks to also like mind memory of what you may know you should be doing that you're not doing. But at the end of the day, you know, the reality of the situation is, I think there's a time to be an island, and then there's a time to not be an island. There's a time to have a somber moment within yourself in order to grow as an individual. And then whenever you learn those things that you taught yourself or that you experienced while you were an island, while you were able to take time for yourself, you can use those things that you've learned once you decide to get on that boat and get on dry land and ask people for help or have relationships, so on and so forth. Now, because you have that moment to kind of have that concealed relationship with yourself and whatever it is you're trying to do, you can demand, you can ask, and you can request for things on the outside world around other people that you may not typically, you know, deal with in the correct way. But I want you guys to leave down below in the comments what you feel about this. Do you think it's good to be an island? Do you think it's good to request help from other people? Do you think that, you know, none of this makes sense in general? If I'm talking from a personal experience, when I was younger, I developed the attitude of not asking anybody for anything. And it stifled me in a way where I became a very arrogant person, because everything that I did was basically on my own accord. Then the older and older I got, I began to cut people out whenever they did one thing that I didn't like. And that's not necessarily healthy, especially when you get older and you have children and you have a family, because your actions affect other people. And even though I know how to handle things in a cutthroat way, that doesn't necessarily mean the people that are around me, my children or my significant other, would be okay with that. So the more and more I begin to develop myself as an individual, I begin to realize that I don't necessarily have to do that as long as I set those boundaries. And I learned that lesson by having time for myself, by being an island, but also by realizing and remembering communication is key. If you feel like you can't deal with anybody, if you feel like you have to be on an island, that you can't deal with anybody, 9 times out of 10, you're probably feeling that way because you don't have the capacity, or you just don't want to communicate with other people with what you need. And the more and more you can learn how to do that, the better things go. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to dive into a full relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have as strong as of a relationship that you had with somebody that you once stopped dealing with. What it means is whenever you decide to deal with somebody, now you know what you can trust them with. Now you know how to articulate to them what you aren't and what you are comfortable with. But at the end of the day, like I said, you guys leave your comments down below. You let me know how you feel about this. If you should be an island, if you shouldn't be an island. Leave some experiences down that you actually went through, and let's all get involved. I'm CamsBrain. I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of My Humble Opinion. I will see you next time. Peace.
Hey, all work, no pleasure.